Is Luthor Harkon completely unhinged in Tides of Torment? Crazy, not stupid. I've always loved that line. Harkon is a mostly functioning lunatic, and that phrase is the purest representation of his personality's multiple. He is ruthless in pursuit of what's essentially a very simple goal, turning Total War Lustria into a looter shooter. How's that going for you, Luthor? Oh, and that large lizardman army in the background seems to be taking issue with your diabolical schemes. We'll have to do something about that. There are lore reasons, but in vanilla, Vampire Coast don't really do Confederation, so you recruit Harkon by picking him as your legendary lord. For 250 upkeep, you get 4,208 health for Harkon on foot, armor is 90, which might surprise, but he equips himself like a real vampire lord, just with a pistol. I'd say a gun, but that gets weird with naval characters. Missile resistance is the standard 15% to start. Leadership of 80 is quite high and solid. Speed 40 and charge speed 46 means he's reasonably nimble. Melee attack begins at 70, shockingly high, and each and every blow inflicts Disrupted for 10 seconds, which inflicts and re-inflicts the silenced effect, and minus 10% to any physical resistance if present. It can't go negative. This version of what he does is not that old, but the faction became disfavored, so many of you might not even have known. Attack interval 4 seconds is the global standard, target splash size medium means Empire Knights on down, and max targets damaged in this manner are 5. Melee defense of 50 isn't exactly low, but that's a little glass along with the cannon. Of more concern is that weapon strength 480 is split base 310 and armor piercing 170, meaning no matter how good he is in melee, he doesn't do top-tier damage against armored targets, much in the vein of low-tier Felhard. Charge bonus is 20, and mass is 900. Fortunately, that is not the end of the story. Luthor Harkon's pistol comes with ammunition 30 to start with. Range is 90, exactly as you'd expect. Harkon is a far-whilst moving character with 360-degree firing. Missile strength is officially 400, and each shot that lands inflicts Disrupted 2. Each individual shot does base 40 and armor piercing 120 on impact. That is, the melee is base tilted, the pistol is armor piercing. Why is the strength that high? That would be because reload time is 4 seconds, which I believe is the in-game cap, so it cannot get any lower than this. Thus, he will tend to run through that ammunition fast. Total accuracy of 70 means that his dead eyes have the kind of sniping ability a witch hunter possesses. Calibration distance 80 meters means it's barely less accurate for the last 10 meters of range. Calibration area 1.6 meters is pretty tight, but you still celebrate every attack on a foot character that actually hits. There is a penetration cap of medium, and a max targets penetrated after the first of 5. That's pretty good, but is reminiscent of an Empire engineer. And I have witnessed this killing 6 Skaven slaves at once, so I can verify that it will hit 6 entities in one shot. Moreover, as a Vampire Coast character, Black Powder Aplenty provides plus 30% to ranged damage until under 80% of ammunition. Harkon is considered an aquatic character and will duel harder when in water. He causes fear and can hide in forest. Harkon was cursed by the Slann, so his magic is sealed in multiplayer state and can be unlocked in campaign, but otherwise is random in terms of what personality he has at a given moment. One of those personalities has Rampage. Well, Pharaoh Rage 1 and 2. So he rampages at 75% and 25% health, which is a fine way to lose him when skirmishing, and he always starts the campaign with that one, the Mad. Anyway, being anti-magical is how he gets that disrupted ability. Power Siphon has 4 uses in battle: active ability, 100 range, 30-second duration, 60 seconds cooldown. This increases enemy cooldowns by 15 seconds. It shows it properly in-game, not on Total War Planner. Anyway, it also adds 1% to fatigue drain on the target per second, which is certainly useful for getting them tired and vulnerable. Magical Void is an aura Harkon uses that creates 30% spell resistance for himself and all allies in a 35-meter radius. He's kind of a Khorne character with weird extra benefits. Harkon eventually gets a Death Shriek Terrorgeist mount, jacking his upkeep up to 575 gold per turn. Health spikes to 8,497 on Ultra, Armor 80, still 15% missile resistance, Leadership 80, Speed and Charge Speed 90 in the sky. Starting melee attack is now 45, and inflicts poison with every attack, and not disrupted. Attack interval is the standard 4 seconds, splash target size large means trolls will dilute damage, and max target's damage still 5. Melee defense 47 isn't bad at all, really. Of course, it's a much bigger target for enemy handgunners. Weapon strength 530 is split base 145 and armor piercing 385, a huge improvement in terms of armor crunching, with a bonus versus large of 25, a general change made to the Vampirate faction and benefiting Harkon enormously. Charge bonus is 40 and mass is 3,500. Now the interesting thing is that the ranged weapon has absolutely no changes in the air, except that it fires in a cone rather than 360 degrees now. So it still inflicts disruption with every shot, and is a fire whilst moving, super accurate attack from the air. It's just not 360 degree anymore. In this form, Harkon causes terror, Noxious Breath is usable, and Harkon still counts as a siege attacker in both forms. This could change someday. Let's move on to campaign skills. As a faction leader, Captain of the Coast gives him a plus 60 diplomacy bonus with the Followers of Nagash, as in Ark in the Black, and minus 60 with Lizardmen, and melee defense plus 6 for all lords and embedded heroes in the faction, including Harkon himself. So he'd have MD 56 to start. That's not so bad. Arch Grand Commodore gives him plus 3 to Vampiric Corruption, where Harkon himself is present, Leadership plus 8 army-wide when fighting Lizardmen, and zombies have really pathetic leadership, and plus 25% spell resistance for his army, cumulative with Magical Void. Now we're talking. That's some serious resistance now. Spirit Leech this. Since I haven't done this faction for a while, I'll go over the blue line because it is very important. Rude Marcher gives plus 5% campaign movement range. Binded to Service is minus 15% recruitment cost. Note that this is going to be cumulative with your shipbuilding horde mechanic, and does not apply to Raised Dead. Ghost Fleet simply gives plus 6% casualty replenishment to your own army. Freebooter increases magic item drop chance and post-battle loot plus 15% at 3 pips. Sea Dogs gives settlement sack income plus 12% and leadership plus 6 when fighting at sea. Go on Account gives recruit rank plus 1 to own army recruitment, plus 1 to local recruitment capacity. The wording implies it doesn't include ship recruitment, but affects what you can get from the local province only. But it also raises it not just for Harkon, but for any friendly admiral in that province at the time. And this skill gives Raised Dead cost minus 15%. Coast doesn't have the borderline broken mechanic counts do, but there's some good stuff here, and it's expensive. And recruitment and Raised Dead costs are separate. You don't get many sources of the latter. But stay tuned. Lightning Strike is the same for all factions. Living Ship at 3 pips is minus 10% to shipbuilding cost, and growth plus 5. Whether you need this is up to you and your situation. Gambler's Wit gives enemy hero success chance minus 10% and ambush defense chance plus 15%. Combing and Preservative at 3 pips is a very strong upkeep minus 15%, and Black Flag is mostly typical of such boosts. Recruit rank plus 1 for own army again, movement range plus 5% again, enemy hero success chance minus 10%, and Raised Dead cost minus 10%, so that's a total of minus 25% right here. The Redline skill's middle point is a Vast Yi, which does a 35-meter radius bubble effect lasting 14 seconds, granting self and allies plus 8 leadership and plus 25% to both kinds of melee damage, base and armor piercing alike. Cooldown is 60 seconds. All Hands Hui is the upgraded version, raising duration to 20 seconds, leadership to plus 16, and cooldown to 90 seconds, the same damage bonus. As in, you wait longer to get it back. It's kinda strong in a ranged quote-unquote faction though. In the top line, Lucky Charm gives 15% missile resistance for only 1 pip, available rank 5. It's good stuff. Tenacity gives plus 8% health for 1 pip, available rank 10. in the main combat line, because aside from campaign stuff, he is not a magic user at all. Monkey Jacket for 1 pip adds ward save 5%, so 1 out of 20 damage goes down a plot hole. 2 pips in Swashbuckler grants melee attack plus 8 and missile resistance plus 5%. 2 pips in Master Strike gives plus 20% weapon strength. 2 in Scarred Veteran is plus 15% health. Hard to hit at 2 is plus 12 melee defense. These work well with Harkon. Harkon does not get Foe Seeker. He gets Taunt, 100 meter range, 60 seconds cooldown, and for 17 seconds the target is minus 25% speed, minus 24 melee defense, and minus 30 armor. This is an assassin-style ability for burning enemies down in melee, but Harkon will fire whilst moving against the closest target regardless, unless he's engaged in melee. Cutlass at 2 pips isn't just weapon strength another plus 20%, it's also bonus versus infantry plus 8. And that helps a lot on the Terrorgeist. Blade Shield for plus 12 melee defense at 2 helps shore up that area for late game. Vampiric Leap gives charge bonus plus 30 flat, and as you might have noticed, Harkon didn't start with a lot there, but he does get more on the Terrorgeist, so this does reach respectable levels. Wild-Eyed at 2 gives melee attack plus 9, extra padding for when on the mount. Finally, Hornswoggle replaces Taunt and shoots up to 90 seconds cooldown, and the effects are unchanged, but they last for 32 seconds now, which is a lot of time in the thick of battle. You use this on something you really want to die, or die a second time. We are not done. As soon as Harkon gets his first pip, he can pick the Hunger, giving him 0.1% healing in melee and in melee only, which has no downside but is conditional. The next pip cannot be taken until rank 5. Supernatural Horror simply gives him Causes Terror, and obviously is only a major boon on foot. His mount is unlocked at rank 18, like Lokir's Dragon, by the way. The next 4 pips are normally mutually exclusive for admirals, but not for Harkon, because he is that hardcore a pirate. You can start selecting them at rank 9 without compunction or distinction. And also they will be distinct from other pirate selections. Forger gives Harkon income from raiding plus 20%. Yeah, raiding still exists. Inflicts control minus 5 to enemy province on top of what it would normally. It gives income from buildings minus 5% to the enemy in that province. Well, it's a little bonus. Smuggler gives campaign movement range plus 8% and local recruitment capacity plus 1 again. Even though you have the ships, the settlements are not useless, and adding plus 8% movement is not wasted at all. Poacher gives Harkon plus 10 bonus versus infantry, making it worth it for that alone, and Zombie Pirate Gunnery Mob recruit rank plus 2, combining with 2 from the tech tree and other boosts. Instant rank 7 gunnery mobs are not a pipe dream. Arsonist gives fire resistance 15% to Harkon and weapon strength plus 8% for Vampire Coast Artillery, including the Queen Bess, which should be Harkon's waifu from early in the campaign on. Now we get into Harkon's personal line. Yes, he had one after all that other stuff. Available at rank 12, Fractured Mind grants Harkon leadership plus 5 and Frenzy. So, plus 10 melee attack, plus 10% weapon strength, and charge bonus, unless leadership is pretty beaten down, and especially with this skill, his leadership is pretty high. Almost redundant on foot, it does enormous work with the Terrorgeist, though the bonus versus large is still a huge boon to it against non-infantry. There are no rank requirements for the next part. Men o' War gives capacity plus 1 for Vampire Fleet Captain Heroes, recruit rank plus 1 for the same, and leadership plus 4 for Zombie Pirate Deckhand mobs and Depth Guard in his army, meaning he makes orthodox units work better, and it's not easy to get enough captains in a lot of games. Severed from the Winds gives Harkon individually spell resistance plus 15%, and this doesn't go away if you manage to restore Harkon's mind in campaign. It may seem like a small boost, but it's on top of everything else. Hand Cannon gives Harkon's pistol explosive ammunition, giving it some kind of extra infantry culling ability, which I add stats for it. Regular missile strength goes up plus 8% for him, but it also goes up plus 8% for gunnery mobs, and that includes the rotting Prometheans mounted ones. Again, things used in pretty normal coast play just got stronger. Moments of Lucidity makes Harkon remember he's paranoid too, so he slaps on armor plus 15 and gets melee defense plus 8, further shoring himself up as a top tier duelist, all transferring to the Terrorgeist. Finally, Pirate King gives him upkeep minus 10% for his own army and global recruitment plus 1. I have to remind, but Dark Elves cannot do global, Coast can, and in fact relies on it. Upkeep reductions matter the more you get high-tier expensive stuff to work with, like Depth Guard and Necrofex Colossi, and this will be cumulative with what you can get through shipbuilding. There is only one legendary item from a battle that is not trivial, but by the time you do it, you should have plenty to work with. Though rank 12 is a lot easier a requirement than in the old days, or so I feel. Just bring enough gunners and the Queen Bess. Slán Gold gives Harkon spell resistance plus 20% by itself. Yes, it gets that ridiculous. And Raise Dead cost plunges minus 50% from normal, which will combine with the blue line if you get that far. Well, we just discussed how to shave upkeep costs. The active ability from the item is 200 meter range, 55 second duration, can only target a spellcaster if one exists, and gives the enemy minus 80% range regeneration mid-battle for that duration, 120 second cooldown. In other words, Harkon is passing the curse onward. How poetic. So how do we use Luthor Harkon? I've overplayed his campaign to learn about the many pitfalls and traps of his campaign in 7.0, and they're so much worse in the Tides of Torment era. The creator gods at CA want Harkon to die. They put an Aislinn sea lane aimed at his throat, or rather his capital, and you can't use that lane to go back after him. Aislinn is your own personal scourge of the seas, and the only reason his mere existence is in an instant loss condition is because the AI doesn't play him well, but also doesn't have to, unless you have the sheer mass to triumph. He has army abilities that seem ideal for taking out heavy-hitting gunnery mobs, and is just plain annoying to fight. Also, his voice is annoying, so here's the title of my movie going forward. Aislinn must die. But he doesn't have to die on a timer. It's just a long-term thing, and I'll explain why. When I finally got Harkon to those islands south of Kugath where Aislinn holds up, Aislinn personally only had a single settlement, and the United Maritime Patrol had 2. I mean, there physically. When I got rid of his settlement, the ones he'd taken near the Awakening when I was trying my barely hold it while working my way around the Cathay Sea Lanes strategy were the only settlements he had. In other words, all he's doing is playing your personal spoiler, working on something the AI does indeed traditionally do. You know, try its hardest to keep you from getting the Awakening to Tier 5 and healing Harkon's mind. So no matter what you do, you need to babysit the Awakening in order to get there. Whether to fully build up the province, don't fully build it up, one way or another, you're going to get attacked because this is Aislinn's personal journey combined with anti-player bias. I've barely even seen him wage war against anyone else unless it's like Clan Spittle, minor Skaven faction neighboring Harkon and Gorok, and when I didn't go after them, Gorok wiped them out. That time he was too busy with Skulltaker to try and eat me yet, but the crocodile saving you for last will still eat you. Aislinn wants you dead before moving on, and if it takes 1 army or 3, he'll eventually push. So, how to deal with this? First of all, since it's predictable Aislinn will come back in force at some point, you want to get your stuff together before that happens. The Awakening isn't exactly terrible, but those dragon ship abilities with awesome anti-garrison effects will tend to savage your forces if it's just a garrison in the later game. So you'll need an actual lord there with an actual army. Harkon in ambush would do it if you could, but yeah, if it's 3 armies actually playing smart, there wouldn't be any way to survive it, really. So like I said, you want your stuff in order, and Aislinn can't attack on the same turn as he finishes his sea lane journey when he's around and dangerous. If you do what I did for the big trek before writing this revised end of the video script, Harkon must eventually go back to sort things out. So let's assume you will eventually do that sooner or later and can eventually get big enough, and with just enough money, to ramp up to be able to repel Aislinn properly. And honestly, auto-resolve might be the better thing against him. Fighting him manually, even in ambush, you are going to take some bad losses. So, how do you build Harkon up? There are other ways to approach it in the early game, because if you can get an additional admiral to loyalty 5 and rank 5 and up, having one in the fleet office that gives plus 10 horde growth is sufficient. If you cannot manage that, or cannot manage it quickly, then it's going to delay you. A Siren requires, I believe it's from ranking up on the sea. So if you're stuck fighting on land, this is harder. So, the absolutely most reliable, repeatable way to get to where you can upgrade your ship faster, which only matters if you get the money for it. Well, 1. You want the ship's carpenter. 10 turns to research, lower right of the tree. None of that is time wasted. Minus 50% to shipbuilding costs. You can move that to the legendary Infamy bot admirals later, because they have shipbuilding too. 2. You want Living Ship, and since that requires real investment in the blue line, I suggest 1 pip in Freebooter because that's effective and at least gets you more post-battle loot, which is not this faction's strength, it's not Norska, and every gold coin counts. 3 pips in Sea Dogs to make sea battles even easier and increase your sacking income. Late game this can outstrip your plunder income thanks to such bonuses, and then get Black Flag. Why this is important besides the obvious coolness value. Upkeep reduction helps, recruit rank helps, but it's the movement range that really serves you in amazing ways. One of the massive advantages Vampirates always had over Black Arcs is that their bonuses apply on land, including the campaign movement bonuses. So plus 3% max from the sail, plus 5% from Route Marcher, more from Black Flag, more from Smuggler, and more from Forced Marching enough, or from being at sea enough. It adds up, and you become a land shark, able to ignore a lot of the worst problems of fighting in Lustria or the Cathay jungles we covered with Nakat. So, what you can control for sure is Living Ship, which gives minus 10% cost for shipbuilding and plus 5 growth. Base is plus 5, Siren is plus 5, Fleet Office is plus 10, so that all gives a max of plus 30. There is a building that you can build with the ships to help further, but obviously once you get to tier 5, it's not going to matter anymore. And when it costs a cool 20,000 gold base to get to tier 5, paving the way to your top tier unit recruitment, reducing that to 8,000 gold is meaningful. You still have to earn money from out on the water because encounters at sea are the best way you can earn money in Harkon's campaign, but you're making those problems a lot easier. Since Harkon can't use magic reliably himself, only some of the time, though it's cool when he can. For magic he needs fleet captains and or working with other admirals reinforcing him, but the only reliable way to force the winds of magic to increase is with a shipbuilding admiral, any shipbuilding admiral, to get in fleet expansion stance on water. There is no channeling stance on land. Beyond this, I find it highly reliable to get zombie polearms and an anti-armor gun line in the middle. And with Raised Dead, handgunners are available most of the time, and hand cannons some of the time. Polearms should appear in the same pools that give hand cannons, so most of what you can recruit fast is trash and stays trash. That should inform you about what you want to recruit and what you want buildings for, including from your settlements. Without proper lords, it's very difficult to recruit from land settlements, like 2 slots, and ultimately is just a complement to your shipbuilding. But here's the thing, other admirals can recruit locally when slots are improved via lord skills like Harkon. Only the shipbuilding admiral can recruit units from his own shipbuildings. This is annoying, it's a downgrade from Black Arcs, but if you plan for it, you can deal with it. Losing the Awakening is mostly an issue of pride and time and trouble, unless Harkon is deleted and you can't get the place back. But most of your trouble is usually getting him on the Terrorgeist, which is aptly named and makes him a terror, or poverty, because you expanded too much and couldn't support it with what you're doing. The AI will help starting wars to pin you down in place and not let you make money, and so on. So, keeping in mind, I have a whole bunch of videos on faction mechanics to come. Sea encounters are the big short-term money earners. Random, but the big battles will earn you a lot of gold. Norska earns a lot more from sacking a big city than you will, but you can still earn a good amount. Vampire Coast retains really good ports. Norskas can scale at the really top end, but have otherwise been nerfed. So, Everything you do is meant to supplement each other in a virtuous circle. Thus, survive Aislinn beating you into a shoebox and tossing you into a whirlpool, and you can do all that. A late addition to this script. Aislinn is obscenely murderous with his army ability stuff, so any single army of zombies against him is going to be wrecked. He is, as a consequence, weaker in a lot of auto-resolve situations than he would otherwise be. Try not to fight fair any more than you would Gorok, but if all you care about is the win, mercilessly accept any auto-resolve you can walk away from. Other videos will go over lots of manual battle tactics, but zombies are inherently vulnerable to big area effect magical attacks. There's only so much you can do. Now, to wrap up for battle itself, Harkon requires kiting. Unlike an engaged unit that can get potshots off with entities not engaged, if Harkon's engaging a unit or in the middle of a mosh pit, Harkon is eternally engaged and has no time to whip out his pistol. The Terrorgeist makes his pistol fire in a cone, not 360 degrees, but the idea is the same. Use speed to keep him from taking too much damage. Do not forget the 15% missile resistance 1 pip. And also, he always starts campaign with the Mad as his personality, with Feral Rage 1 and 2. Make sure he doesn't go feral in front of handgunners early on and lose him. Not because you can't get him back, because the generic lords are powerful, but it's kind of embarrassing. So pick your spots, learn when to engage in melee and when not to. Keep the gunnery wights handy, and though there are a lot of routes to success, everything you choose not to do has a cost. Not taking territory has a cost, not building coasts has a cost, not raising settlements for infamy has a cost, etc. Pick your poison, keep building the ship up, and relentlessly try to make money. So the golden rule is this. Gold is needed to ramp up. Loyalty is needed to ramp down. So if you need to take units away and disband lords, that right of eternal service might save you embarrassing situations because, in the vein of an indie game's catchphrase, death is not the end, poverty is. So avoid bankruptcy. That's why the blue line, while not your only option at all, is the most reliable and repeatable one, and why I'm making it my advice to Harkon newbies. Take care, and have fun plundering the 7 seas and every bit of land attached to them. It's a long road as Harkon, but once you're zipping around that map, it feels a lot smoother.